record. Good evening and welcome to the Hamilton City Council regular meeting from May 24th, 2023. It's a little after 6 o'clock. We're in City Council Chambers, 345 High Street in Hamilton. Roll call, please.
Pullman.
Present.
Fear.
Present.
Vaughn. Ryan.
Here.
Nab.
Present.
Lauer.
Here.
Moeller.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Motion to excuse Councilmember Vaughn for reasons known to City Council.
So moved. Second.
Motion by Councilmember Nab, second by Vice Mayor Ryan. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Hearing none, that motion is carried. Let's start off with offering a prayer by Councilmember Carla Fear, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
Heavenly Father, thank you for the gift of life and the opportunity to serve the people of our city. Help us to act with character and conviction. Help us to listen with understanding and goodwill. Help us to speak with charity and restraint. Give us a spirit of service and let us be effective and decisive. In faith and confidence we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Prior to going to special presentations, I just want to say something real quick. I asked for a moment of silence for a deputy sheriff down in Scott County. Name is Caleb Conley. He was shot and killed conducting a traffic stop in Kentucky. Vice Mayor Ryan and myself found out last night. It's believed that the individual who shot and killed him was burglarizing homes or garages in Butler County. That's what we heard last night. I mean, if that's true, he did die for basically all of us and the other victims, people he victimized. So I guess the dots may be connected to this individual, but we heard that last night from, I thought, pretty reliable sources. Moment of silence for this deputy who gave his life doing his duty. Thank you. Special presentations, Mary Lynn Loader. Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you very much. Yes, I'm here. Thank you very much. I'm here from the Miami Conservancy District. My name is Mary Lynn Loader. I'm the general manager of the Miami Conservancy District, and I've been at the district now for just about a year, and I've had the pleasure of meeting with the city manager a couple of times, as well as some of the staff, and I just wanted to get out and talk with some of the city council members, where we provide service. We actually provide service to 21 different communities up and down the river, and I want to be able to address some of the issues that are relevant and unique to each of the communities, and also just kind of share what it is that we do at the Conservancy District. I'll try to be brief and answer any questions for you. And before I get in, you might have actually gotten our recent publication. Have you guys gotten any of these yet? I'll leave some of them here. This is called Our Deed, and kind of just gives a little bit of an overview of the Conservancy District, and I'll leave them with the clerk. And if I didn't bring enough copies, I actually meant to bring extra copies so that you could leave them in the lobby and whatnot too. So I'll be sure to get some to you. So again, I'm here just for about a year now at the Conservancy District. I have a lot of experience in water, wastewater. I actually worked for Butler County Environmental Services when it was Environmental Services several years ago. And when I moved to Ohio from New York about 30 years ago, upstate New York, it was, here in the city of Hamilton, which certainly welcomed me. And I got to see, Hamilton transform over the years that I worked here, and certainly coming back. So it's nice to see Hamilton and just how much it's really come back over the last several decades. And so just real quick, I wanted to just give you an overview of the Conservancy District. Our mission is to help thriving communities like Hamilton and those up and down the river to be able to realize it's their own visions. And how we do that is by protecting communities through the flood protection system that we have. And many of you might be aware of the fact, and probably all of you are aware of the fact that in 1913, many of the communities, including Hamilton, was devastated by the 1913 flood. And as a result of that, the Conservancy District was born, and with the establishment of a state law that allowed for conservancy districts to be created. So we're here to protect communities, we preserve water resources, and also are promoting the riverway. And so we have 3 different sub-districts as part of the Great Miami, as part of the Miami Conservancy District. And each one of those districts that we have, we collect revenue in different ways for us to do our work. For the flood protection system, each of the communities that benefit from the flood protection system do provide a unit assessment they pay into the Miami Conservancy District, as does each of the property owners that benefit from flood protection that were impacted in the 1913 flood is how we collect revenue. And actually in that publication, there's a page that kind of talks about how our revenue is collected, because that's somewhat been a mystery for many. And so I just figured let's get it out there. With regards to preservation of our water resources, we work closely with the Hamilton New Baltimore Groundwater Consortium, and the city of Hamilton does not pay any fees into the aquifer protection subdistrict that we have. The counties actually pay some portion of that revenue. And then with regards to our promotion or our recreation improvement subdistrict, we have our Great Miami Riverway program that Hamilton is a part of, and then also we have some recreational amenities within the city of Hamilton or areas that actually do pay a small amount into that as well. I'm going to mostly talk about our flood protection system because that's what I think is, it is our primary district, and it's one that I've been, getting much more acclimated in the last year. And I think it's important for us to talk about it because it is over 100 years old, the flood protection system, and we all rely on it every single day, whether you know it or not, And so what's protected by the flood protection system is outlined here on this slide. Over $7.3 billion worth of property up and down the river are protected, is protected by the MCD flood protection system, as well as the several wastewater treatment plants, water plants, all the roads and bridges and whatnot. So we have that all throughout the whole Miami Valley, but within Hamilton alone, and this is just the property value that is protected by the Miami Conservancy District. Within the city limits of Hamilton, it's about $700 million of property value that is protected. And the different colors that you see on that map up and down the river, we have 2 different levels of protection, one of which has levees, and so levees provide additional protection than just properties that don't have levees. So you might be asking, well, how do we protect the properties if we don't have levees in certain areas? And that's, we have dams. We have dams. This is an illustration of our flood protection system. So again, throughout the whole Great Miami River watershed, up north in the city of Dayton, we actually have 4 rivers that come together. So the Great Miami River is not just the Great Miami River, but in Dayton, the Mad River and Stillwater River and then Wolf Creek all come together in Dayton, but then upstream and at 3 locations, we actually have large dams. We have dams that store and hold back that water so it doesn't inundate our downstream communities like Hamilton. So the flood system, it's again, one integrated system. We don't get just protection in here from Hamilton with just the levees that are in Hamilton, but it's, that upstream infrastructure as well. In addition to the dams, we also have 55 miles of levees. In Hamilton, we have 5 miles of levees, and we have to maintain and mow those, keep those in good condition. We also have, in total, 185 floodgates, and in Hamilton, we have 39 floodgates, and we operate those and close those when we need to, when the river gets high, to keep water out of the city of Hamilton and keep it in the river. And then we also own about 1,100 acres of floodplain up and down the river. And the thing that I really like to make sure that people understand too is that we have 35,000 acres of area upstream of the dams that we control the development rights on. And we do that because that's an integral part of the flood protection system to ensure that that land is there for essentially for flooding. We don't own the land, but we own the rights to flood that land. And again, that's part of protecting Hamilton as well as the other 20 cities that we provide protection for. So this is just another deep dive into those 35,000 acres of land that we have in upstream of each of those 5 dams, where we have rules and regulations that restrict development, and we're protecting the property from building for communities like Hamilton. So again, that's an integral part of the flood protection system, and we have a lot of reviews that we're doing on those. Some of the risks that we have to the flood protection system is, again, like I said earlier, it's aging infrastructure. It's over 100 years old now. And then we also have, climate trends. Over the last several decades, we've been seeing more frequent, more intensity of rainfall, and that has impacts to our levees, to our dams. And so again, I like to think and say that our flood protection system has had to work harder in the last 50 years than it has in the first 50 years because of those intense rainfalls. And so also just in 2023, our annual precipitation is up 3.9 inches over the average. So that's, again, the trends are going in that direction. So those are more of the risks of the flood protection system. And now just a real brief overview on how we're funded. Again, as I mentioned, the individual properties that flooded in 1913, and then the Conservancy District designed and constructed the levees, the dams, based on the flooding that occurred in 1913 and the fact that those properties are now protected. They pay an assessment, a maintenance assessment to the Conservancy District so that we can ensure that the costs are recovered. And then also each of the communities, the 21 communities that make up where that protection is provided, as well as the counties, pay a unit assessment based on those properties that are protected. Individually, the cities or the counties don't pay. It's actually, so the properties that the city or the counties own are not assessed, but it's more based on just the individual properties that are benefited, and then it's a formula that is derives. For the city of Hamilton, and we get those dollars directly from the county auditor. Right now, the cost is about $200,000 that the city of Hamilton pays for flood protection from the Great Miami River. We also rely on grants or low-interest loans to implement improvement projects. So we're in the process right now of doing what's called a readjustment of benefits. And so based on the Conservancy District the Ohio Revised Code for the Conservancy Districts, we can only readjust our benefits no more than every 6 years. And so we have board of directors and then a conservancy court that meets once a year. And in 2020, the Conservancy Court authorized MCD to proceed with a readjustment of benefits. We are in the process of that now because the county, Butler County, was appealing the property values. That had to be on hold for a bit, but we're proceeding with that now. And at this point, as the slide says, we have not had any increase in revenue for 10 years. And so we've had a flat revenue base for our maintenance. Last year, the Conservancy Court authorized a slight increase of about 0.5% to our maintenance assessment, but ultimately that is a no net increase to those who pay it because we had a capital assessment expire. So as that capital assessment expired, the maintenance assessment was increased by the same amount. So in effect, it's a no net increase. But overall, there's been no increases prior to that for 10 years, and now we're in the process of doing those readjustment of benefits. And so what is a readjustment of benefit? So essentially, The intent in, again, state laws to ensure that the benefits are fair and equitable based on land use changes or property changes, whether they be for the, development or whether they be reductions in value. So the court did order a change, a readjustment of our benefits based on the fact that there's a material change in property values over the last 10 years. And, but we can't do it any more than every 6. And again, the purpose is to ensure, fair and equitable. So just as some of the pictures that are on the slide are, just showing some of the improvements to property, as well as, some properties that experience some hurricane damage are noted on here as well. So essentially, this process will take us through the next year. And if it does proceed with regards to the court determining an increase or an adjustment, rather, it's not necessarily to bring in additional revenue. It's really to make it fair and equitable. And then based on the fact that we can't do it any more than 6 years, we do have to be able to end that cycle kind of at the same financial position that we're at right now. If we don't have a readjustment, we're looking at being in a deficit in about 2 years. So it's really critical that, we continue to provide the flood protection benefits and that we make the reinvestments that we need to into the assets that we have. Again, these collections would not be in effect until spring of 2025, but it takes us that time frame in order to ensure, changes in land uses and whatnot are accounted for. And so I think that's all I've got. And again, I just wanted to let council know that I'm here and that we're having some conversations with the city. We're doing a lot of good things, I think, with regards to talking about a potential flood wall mural on the Black Clawson flood wall. Also started some discussions with some congressional folks to try to get some federal dollars to help us make some reinvestments in our infrastructure, and also started talking with the Corps of Engineers on doing a special study between the 2 low-head dams that we own in the city of Hamilton, the 2 Mile Dam and then the downstream dam at Miami University. So kind of looking at what could we do within this area to help Hamilton realize the vision that has been developed in the Riverfront Plan. And the next week, actually, we have a, this might seem a little silly, but we actually have a robotic mower. So it's a lawn mower, but it's, 5 feet wide, and we have some really steep slopes that are very dangerous. It's hard to get to. So next week, I think we're going to have that mower here in Hamilton getting some work done. So I'll take any questions if you have any.
Mayor, please. Thank you so much for coming down here. This was great information, and glad you're here. Just a question about dredging.
Dredging?
Yeah. Is that the responsibility of MCD?
In some areas it is. We do have a pretty ongoing operation right near the 2 Mile Dam that we have a lot of gravel that accumulates in that area, so we do actually remove some gravel out of the channel quite a bit.
Okay, are we going to be doing anything from dam to dam, like just clean up? I mean, I don't know when the last time that section of the river that is used for boating and fishing and kayaking with our rowers, do we have any plans in place from MCD that, they're going to dredge out that section of the river that is used a lot more?
So there's no plans right now, but I think as part of this study with, looking at the channel capacity, that is something that we're going to be looking at.
Okay, great.
Yep.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Please.
Along those lines, who determines when the river should be dredged or not? We put a work order in that we think something needs to be done, or?
I think that I'm actually not really sure how to answer that, because, and I think, in terms of the material that we remove, it's more from a standpoint of like gravel and material that's building up. In terms of dredging, I'm not sure like what kind of material, you guys.
Like the trees and logs.
Yes,
Things
yes.
that get in the way.
Yeah, and we do remove a fair amount of drift Now typically, because drift, and drift being big logs, big trees and stuff like that, typically what happens is that stuff is so waterlogged that it's nearly impossible to get it out and move it around, that typically it's, something that we're trying to push out and push downstream. And that has been the practice. Now, again, since I've been here, I've been kind of asking similar questions like, is there anything else we could do with it? Because it just seems like we push it, one place, then it's, now a problem someplace else. So kind of looking at some best practices there. But I think I'll have to look into that further. Yep.
Mr. Mayor, Mary Lynn, thank you. In my service on city council, it's the first time anyone has come to visit with us and share your story.
Yep.
So welcome, we're glad you're here. Joshua's kept us apprised of some of the conversations that have taken place, and we're glad to hear that those are workable conversations, that there is a perhaps and a maybe and things like that, as you learn more about, as Vice Mayor Ryan called it, dam to dam, the recreation aspect, that boating, and we're fortunate that we have a launch and things, but basically those are fairly unusable because of those 8-foot logs that you mentioned that are in 8 feet of water in our pool, that the boaters can't use that appropriately and things. 5 years, 6, 8 years ago, we had river days and fast water boats and pulling skiers and things like that. We can't do those things anymore, just with those things that are buried. So we get it, and we also understand as you're asking questions and learning, but as Carla and Michael shared, these are things that we get questions on often from the people that wish to use the river for recreational purposes.
Yeah, and I think that all those things can be put into like this evaluation so that we can try to, make sure that we're answering the right questions and coming up with at least answers. They might not be the answers we want to hear, but let's at least ask the questions and do some evaluations.
You bet. Thanks so much.
Yep.
Any other comments? I loved your presentation. I mean, protect, preserve, promote. If you showed up here every 6 months or so and gave us an idea of where we are on various timelines, I'd appreciate that.
Absolutely.
Because you're talking about murals, we talked just about dredging, and just to kind of see where we're at every 6 months is there something that you could do?
Absolutely. Be happy to.
We promise we won't try to stop
Okay.
you every time you come. Give you a heads up.
One last question. Where in upstate New York?
Okay. Well, lots of places. Around like Syracuse or Morrisville, Georgetown is actually the
I've
small.
been accused of that same accent, and that's why I asked it.
Right.
I moved here in 1977, and they only let me back into Western New York twice a year to visit. So,
Yeah, I do. I recognize the Western New York. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
Next, we have Butler County Land Bank Side Lot Program. Norman Nelson.
Good evening.
Hi.
So I'm just here tonight to give you a quick update on the side lot program. I think most of you are pretty well acquainted with it at this point, but we'll just kind of run through an overview for those that are not familiar and give you kind of an update on where we're at as of the spring. So the side lot program is in place really as a tool for the city to dispose of these small vacant residential lots in our densest urban neighborhoods to get those properties into the hands of the adjacent property owner. We hear a lot, one, that owners want the extra green space, right? They're in dense urban neighborhoods and often don't have much of a yard, if at all. So if there's a vacant lot next to them, it affords them the opportunity for a little bit of yard. We also hear a lot, unfortunately, that there's vehicle traffic. Cars are driving through and rutting up these vacant lots. People are parking on grassy lots. There's maybe some unwanted foot traffic or activity at night that's happening in these city lots right next to the places where people are living. And so neighbors have interest in taking over these lots, one, to maintain them, to make sure they look nice. Oftentimes folks are wanting to put up fences to eliminate some of the unwanted activity that's going on close to their homes. So it's a way for us to reduce blight in our neighborhood, improve neighborhood safety, and ultimately it's also reducing city cost because we're paying to mow and maintain these lots when they're on our books. There we go. So a quick refresher on sort of how we arrived at where we are today. So In 2020, City Council approved a few changes to the program, which really just addressed how we approved the program and expedited the timeline. So previously, it was really a 3 to 4 month process from the time that an application came in, staff approved it, went through 3 city council meetings, there was a 30-day referendum period, we had a closing. So all of the while, the neighbor, that's wanting this lot, wanting to fence it off, wanting to eliminate people driving or parking or whatever the case may be, the lot was sort of sitting there in limbo for a long time. We were also having to mow it for several extra months. Once really it had already been approved by staff, but before we could get to the closing. So in 2020, we addressed this by shortening sort of how it runs through council. That has been met with great, I would say, satisfaction from those that are applying now, where really that timeline is more like 4 to 6 weeks from when I'm first reviewing an application to the time when it's in their hands and they're able to do what they want with the lot. And bolted up there as well, I just mentioned, it costs the city about $1,000 a summer per lot. So if you think back to a few years ago, when it was taking us the whole summer to transfer, a property, we were really having to maintain it a whole extra year. In 2021, we did some additional updates to the program rules. One of the major ones was that we removed the owner occupancy requirement. So previously, to be eligible, you had to not only be the property owner next door, but be the occupant of the house. And while our preference is still that these lots are going to an owner occupant, a lot of times there's not an owner occupant next to these vacant lots. So now any property owner next door, any homeowner is eligible. We also tried to sort of address what we are looking at in terms of determining what makes an applicant, quote unquote, in good standing with the city and county. So some things that were added, it's now not just, the name on the application, but we're looking at when we're reviewing properties that the applicant owns in the city, we're looking at not only the, properties listed in their individual name, but if they have LLCs, businesses, business partners, we're reviewing all of those properties to make sure they're in good standing. We also added some language to try to address chronic nuisance violations. So, for example, if someone has had more than 4 nuisance violations in the last 2 years across any properties they own in the city, then they're not eligible. So things like that were added into the program rules. And then lastly, we created sort of a tiered fee structure for our transfers. So previously it was a flat $100 if you were eligible to acquire the lot. Because we've expanded this not now to incorporate more than just the owner occupant next door, we do have applicants that are applying for these lots that own quite a few properties in town, and that just is more staff time really to review it. So the fee is still low, but the more properties you own in town and the more staff time is required to do the review, there's kind of a tiered structure now. So I would say predominantly though, when we are successful in selling the property, it's almost always still $100. It's, I think we've had a few that were $200 because somebody owed, 10 properties or something. So it hasn't really drastically changed the cost for anyone. The side lot program works in 2 different ways. The majority of our lots that are approved are transferred to the owner through a quitclaim deed. The other option in certain instances is that the city is leasing these lots. So this happens kind of in 2 different scenarios. One is the lot is located in a part of town that city council and city administration has deemed sort of as strategically where we are wanting to hold property in the short term. As an example, in the north end for North Hamilton Crossing, if you think about the Jefferson neighborhood and the new public safety improvements and campus that's going in, these are areas where the city has been maintaining ownership until there's more definitive plans on where are these infrastructure improvements going, where is there economic development that's going to be happening. We don't want to be buying back property in the future that we once owned. So strategically, the city's holding properties in certain areas. The other case where it happens, which is much less frequently, but on occasion we have folks that are applying for the lot next to them and they're under a land contract in the process of purchasing the home that they're in. So the lease allows us to give them access to that lot to do with it what they want, but we're not going to transfer it to them until they own their house outright and their name's on the deed, and then we can move forward with the sale. The lease is only $1 But it essentially allows folks to utilize that green space as an extension of their yard. They're allowed to fence it off. They can maintain it. What they're not allowed to do is make permanent changes. So you can't build a garage or pave a driveway on these leases that are on these leased lots, but you can utilize them as yard space. So here's kind of the nuts and bolts of where we are at today. So over the last, I would say this is probably 3.5-ish years, 4 years maybe, really since I've been involved with the side lot program. I have reviewed over 220 applications. About 150 of those have been approved, and more than 70 have been denied. There was a few more that trickled in this week that have been denied. In most instances, when an applicant is told no, it's an issue with overdue property taxes or utilities. And so most often the letters they're getting from me say, hey, here's the issue. Pay your property taxes, get your utilities paid. Once everything's current, come back to me and notify me, and then I can revisit their application and hopefully get them approved. There have been instances where it's been a hard no because it's a chronic nuisance issue or something else, but most often those letters are, here's what needs to be addressed, and then we can get you approved. Of the 150 that have been approved, more than 100 of those have been sales, and then about 40 of them have been leases. I note on there as well, there's been a very small number of approvals that have come through city council, and we've moved forward towards a closing, and somewhere in that process, when I'm back in communication with the applicant, they've backed out. And then there's only been one lease that we've had to cancel after it was executed. It was not an issue with like a property failing to be maintained. It unfortunately was the lessee passed away, and so that lease was canceled because it doesn't transfer to a new owner. So from a big picture, if we kind of zoom out in terms of all of the work that the Quick Strike team is doing and all of the property that the city is maintaining, we still have about 600 properties that our Quick Strike team is mowing. So the number is large. And so this has helped made a dent, absolutely. If you consider about the 600 that they're currently mowing this summer still, with the 150 or so that are off the city books, it's been about a 20% reduction. But we also are continuing to take on more properties all of the time. So whether it be for economic development purposes, for example, if you think of North 2nd and North 3rd Street, where the city acquired a lot of parcels, for future development, the CIC has taken on some properties, things like that. We also, the city is responsible for mowing and maintaining properties that are forfeited to the state. So anytime properties are going through sheriff sale and they don't sell it at 2 sheriff sales, they end up forfeited to the state. Those are grassy lots that now we're mowing. So we're taking properties off our books, but keep in mind that we're also always kind of adding to that. So we're chipping away at it. And then lastly, I just put in some before and after photos. So, while we're not, in most cases, building new homes or new development is not happening on these lots, they are small but very impactful improvements in our neighborhood. So think about the blight that's being removed through the demolition, most often with the help of the land bank, and then reactivating that space for the neighbors who live next to it. So this is just a few photos. All of these are the same lot. The owner next door, took on the vacant lot next to them, and it's now fenced in and mowed, and they're able to utilize that space. Here's another example. This was a lot where the house had caught on fire. We were able to demo it through the land bank, and now it's yard space. Can't really see it in that picture very well, but there's a volleyball net last summer that was set up in that yard space. There's another example where the lot's now fenced in, and you can see how small these parcels are, right? They're tiny in our dense urban neighborhoods, but it makes a big difference for the folks that live next to them. I think that's it. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
And I apologize if you've already answered this, but are the lots ever split in half so that each property on each side of it has some
So
of
I've
the-
actually never I've never had an occasion where that has come up since I've been involved, but our side lot program rules do spell out how that process would be addressed if there was interest
So it
from
could
both
be if they
neighbors.
wanted
It
to.
could
Okay.
be, it could be done, yep, but we actually haven't had that come up. Sometimes, actually, the house property that was demoed is 2 parcels, so we've sold each parcel to the adjacent property owner. But in terms of like a lot split, we haven't had to do that yet.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you for that presentation, because we get these on our agendas. I've always wondered what
Right.
amount of we had reached, and 150 is really changing a lot of people's, their, whether it's recreation, or whether it's appearance, it's making a big difference.
Right, yep. Yeah, I know they're often on your agendas. They're just kind of funneling through at most of your meetings, so happy to give you an update.
Great.
Great, thanks.
Thank you. Now go to audience of citizens. Individuals wishing to make comments can make those comments during this part of the agenda, or wait until the item is on the floor for a vote. You're required to sign the blue book that was in the back of the room. Each speaker is allowed up to 5 minutes. Jim Loneman. Name and your address, please, and your city
Jim
subject to be
Loneman,
addressed.
544 Franklin Street, Hamilton, 45013. Anyway, I want to go to Barney's Bar, around Barney's Bar all the time, and their car's parked real close to the corner. I mean, not even 3 feet from where the corner is, you know. That's all illegal in the state of Ohio. You know, and then the cops don't do nothing about it. I can see them cops go by all the time. They could pick it, or at least give a warning, you know. Couldn't they? So they could start making money for that, like, for the city. You know?
You know, Jim, the way Lindenwold is kind of set up, probably had a lot of single car families back in the day, but there is going to be more parking in the Lindenwold area, more cars parked, and
Yeah.
I'm sure everybody's doing the best they can to be a good neighbor, and I'm sure our public safety is doing the best they can to make sure that there isn't something going on which is going to create an accident. So,
That's very true. I'm saying, but I mean, what I'm talking about is there's the whole street is there's nothing on there but a car parked right by the corner, right close to the corner, so you can't get around. You know, or you get, you know.
hopefully people will notice when they're parking and kind of determine if there's going to be a site issue or something like that. But you've raised an interesting issue we ought to think about when we park our cars in our neighborhoods.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, it's just, you know, it's aggravating when you especially when people, like I park in Barney, sometimes Barney's parking on the sign that says, no parking here corner, they park in front of the sign. You know, and they won't do nothing to cops. They go right by all the time. Why don't they?
I've noticed people do park in front of those signs, so you just keep being a good driver, and we'll make sure that what you're saying gets spread out to our
Because
citizens.
I'm a very safe driver, I'm saying, but you can't see around the corner without closed.
I get it. We all need to remind each other when and where to park. Thanks for bringing the issue to our attention, because it's a serious issue.
Because I'm worried about safety for people, you know. And also, there's also on the west side of we're on, there's the streets, there's no signs for the streets.
Where is this, for example?
Over in Lindenwold.
Lindenwold? Okay. Well, those in the city who live in Lindenwold, we drive to Lindenwold, we'll take a look at that.
Okay,
Okay.
now,
Thanks, Jim.
well, thank you. Every night.
Okay, that takes care of our audience of citizens. We now go to the consent agenda. That involves matters including all staff reports, caucus reports, our information reports, which are the April 2023 financial report, April 2023 investment report. We're going to go into the committee of the whole. That's where council may ask questions and provide directions or comments on various reports. So I'll set the motion that the regular meeting be recessed and the committee of the whole take place.
So moved. Second.
From Councilmember Pullman, second by Vice Mayor Ryan. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Hearing none, that motion is carried. It is 6:41. We now go into the caucus agenda.
Okay, so our first presentation for this evening will be by our Executive Director of External Services, Mr. Tom Vanderhorst. This is related to an amendment to our Community Reinvestment Area, or CRA.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of council. I'm Tom Vanderhorst, the Executive Director of External Services, and I'm here to talk to you tonight about agenda item number 1. It's going to come to you today as one caucus item, but I believe when it comes to City Council in a couple of weeks here, it's going to be 2 different pieces of legislation. The first one pertains to the Main High Community and Reinvestment Area. This is an area that we currently have that, like it says, it runs mainly down Main and High. I'll show you a map later in the presentation as to what it is today and how we're amending it. The 2 things that we're doing to it are we're expanding the area and we're removing the limitation on the number of units that this applies to currently in the legislation. It's limited to just 2 units. So first you might ask, what is a community reinvestment area? These are areas where we can offer tax incentives in the way of abatements that make projects work a little bit better for the property owner, for the developer. Why is it attractive? If you think about it as your total cost of holding on these projects, if you're going to have a lower tax bill moving forward, you're able to borrow a little bit more, put more money into the project. From a cash flow perspective, you end up about the same place. And has the city offered these before? Yes, we've offered them since 2012, and what we're finding is, along with other cities, as our focus areas and priorities and cost of doing business change, we're probably going to come back and retool these based on what we're seeing in the market. So like I said, what are we changing? We're changing the area and the number of units. And the area, I think, is important because as we're finding, and Liz does a great job working with ADRB and trying to do historic preservation, but it really makes the cost of doing business in those areas a little bit more cumbersome. So we're going to include some of those areas. And like I said, we're removing the number of units that is currently at 2, and we're lifting it. And the reason why we're doing that is we're finding these larger projects need to come back with different incentive packages anyway. So this sort of speeds up the process. So right now, here's the current Main High area that's in the CRA. Now these are pretty generous CRAs that are offered here, so they range between 10, 12, and 15 years depending on the project. Those rules are not changing, just the area and the number of units. So this map is going to look like this map. So you can see that we're including the historic areas and then also the area in the Riverfront Master Plan. So if you overlay these together, you'll see, and let me put it back and forth, you'll see how it's expanding from the red to the blue. So any questions on this one? So this is the Main High one. And you're going to see on one of the later maps that this works sort of like a puzzle, and this will be the missing puzzle piece in the map that you're going to see later in the presentation. So the other change that we're making, and by the way, we've already talked to the school board about this. We let them know that this was happening, let them know about the impact and all that, and I think that they were supportive of it. But what we're changing on this one is we are offering CRAs 10 years, and you can see, I know it's sort of hard to read, but 100% for 50 years and older, 75% for 25 to 49, and 50% for those that are greater than 25 years old. Or, I'm sorry, less than 25 years old. So what you're going to find on these is this is the renovation. So they're going to do an abatement on the renovation. So if you have a house that's $100,000, let's say it's a rehab, you have to put another $100,000 in it. You would only pay taxes on that first $100,000. The increase, you would have an abatement depending on where you fall in this. And again, why are we doing it? Cost of doing business. We want investment in these areas. And one of the things that we're changing is because it's very difficult for us to change our local building code, what we're going to do is try to give incentives through the CRA. So we're starting another program that offers 10-year incentives for new builds if they're LEED certified. So what we want to do, we don't want to give incentives to just the regular production builders that come into town, but if we have somebody who builds a very high quality product, and you'll see one of these at 1733 Greenwood. I don't know how many of you toured the energy efficient house that's over there, but this is a high quality product that we want to give incentives to. And we're also allowing another 5-year incentive. So it's going to be 10 years if it's energy efficient, LEED certified or HERS certified, another 5 years if it's visibility, if it meets the visitability standards. I didn't know that was a word. I found out visitability. It's sort of like, think about it as almost like ADA light. You know, you have no step entrance, you have wide walkways, you have bathrooms that are wide. You'll see some of the standards in here. So like I said, the missing puzzle piece, the area in the middle of the donut is the main high expanded CRA. The other one is the citywide CRA. So I know it covered a lot in there. What questions do you have?
Questions? I'd say thank you for your presentation here, but when I was reading over the motion agenda, it just refreshed my memory again all about the CRA and what we're trying to do. So appreciate you putting the presentation together.
Well, thank you.
Okay, next up, there'll be 2 presentations related to liquor permits by me. Excuse me. Hello, Mayor, members of City Council, members of the public, Daniel Tidyman, City Clerk. I'll be presenting on agenda items 2 and 3, which are both liquor permit applications. I know we cover a lot of liquor permits through council, but I'll do a quick refresher on why they're coming to council. So the Division of Liquor Control issues these liquor permits amongst various permit holders, and the Ohio Revised Code allows legislative authorities such as City Council the opportunity to object to these permits, typically through either the fire code, building code, or health code. In this case, for both of these permits, staff has reviewed these permits and there are no objections, so the motion that's within your packet is to not object to these permits. So the first permit is a transfer permit for 101 South Monument Avenue, or the Fitness Center for Creative Arts. As you know, this is a venue where they do catered events. They also usually have a cash bar. D5 and D6 permits are to allow Sunday sales, and if I can remember correctly, this is from 10 a.m. to midnight on Sundays. And then agenda item number 3, this is the Ameristop located at 1039 Eden Avenue. These are for D2, D2X, and D6 permits. A portion of this deals with purchasing, I believe it's pre-packaged wine or liquor to be consumed on premises, as well as Sunday sales from 10 a.m. to 1 o'clock a.m. And Ameristop, I believe they are like a retail food establishment. Do we have any questions on these items?
Mr. Mayor,
Please.
recently, well, not recently, over the past few years, the uptick on uses of vapes, and many of these convenience stores are selling vapes, and many of these are getting into the hands of our youth. As we go to change some of these liquor permits and transfer them, Mr. Scramese, is Mr. Scramese still here? Is there any way to get some type of information or data as to some of these convenience stores who are selling to our youth? I'm not saying that this one is, but for me to push forward to help these businesses move forward, I would like to know if any of these are having violations that we need to address in the future.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Okay, thank you.
You.
Then next up for agenda items 4 and 5, we will have our Executive Director of Infrastructure, Edwin Porter.
Good evening, Mayor, members of City Council, Hamilton Community. I'm here to talk about 2 things pretty quickly. I don't have any fun slides. The first item I'm presenting on is within the Department of Infrastructure Division of Utility Operations, there exists a role called Utilities Electric Engineer. That position became vacant last year, and before we fill any vacancies, we take a look at the position description to make sure it still matches the role of the position. we realized that that one did not. It required some more expertise in specific control functions of plants, which is needed to be added into the position description because that additional skill set and role expanded and changed the role. HR felt that instead of adding it to the existing position, that we should create a new one. And so being proposed to you is adding a position called Public Utilities Control Engineer, but really that's not a new position, it's just a replacement for an existing position. So you'll see that come to you, and just know that's not in addition to, it's just a change of skill set, and that'll be, once filled, it's just an alternate skill set. So any questions on that one specifically? Nope. Okay. And then secondly, as most know, the City of Hamilton is a founding member of American Municipal Power, and that's a joint action agency that aggregates power, advocates for public utilities. Since its formation, it has grown to serve over 133 members across 9 states, and so it's a pretty significant presence now. As a part of American Municipal Power, they have a board of trustees, which consists of 23 members. Those members represent regional groups. Our group is called the Southwest Ohio. It's a Southwest Service Group. Consists of ourselves, Blanchester, Georgetown, and Lebanon. Every 3 years, that group designates one of the communities to represent the service group on the AMP Board of Trustees. We've been nominated to fill that position. So you'll see come before you legislation that not only allows us to have that board seat, which we've had in place before, but in August of 2021, we changed the requirement. Originally, it was my position only, the Executive Director of Infrastructure. We changed in August of 2021 to the Director of Business Services. At the time, it was Nate Perry. He had a lot of experience with it, and so this legislation will change it back to my position or the designee of this position. And essentially what that'll do is allow a little bit more flexibility that in the case that we continue to be nominated to represent our service group, this position or a designee of this position can fill that role. Any questions on that?
Questions?
Mr. Mayor,
Please.
I would suggest that the executive director bring slides the next time.
Oh, okay, sure. No problem.
Thanks, Edward.
right,
Good
thank you.
stuff.
Okay. That takes care of the caucus agenda. Is there a motion that the committee of the whole be closed?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Fear, seconded by Vice Mayor Ryan. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Hearing none, that motion is carried. It is 6:54. I'll accept the motion that the regular meeting be reconvened.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Pullman, second by Councilmember Fear. Roll call vote on that motion, please.
Pullman,
Yes.
Fear,
Yes.
Ryan,
Yes.
Nab,
Yes.
Lauer,
Yes.
Moeller.
Yes.
Motion adopted, 6-0.
And I'll accept the motion regarding the items on the agenda.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Pullman.
make a motion that with the exception of the items so noted, council receive the reports of the consent agenda and concur on the recommendations.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Pullman, second by Vice Mayor Ryan. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, that motion is carried. Now go to council actions pertaining to legislative items. And I'll accept the motion.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Nab.
I move that a note be made upon the minutes that each member of council was furnished a printed copy of each item of legislation prior to its being considered at this meeting.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Nab. Second by Councilmember Lauer. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Hearing none, that motion is carried. It is 6:55. Now go into actions pertaining to legislative items and pending legislation. Number 6, second reading of an ordinance vacating a portion of North B Street Alley.
An ordinance vacating a portion of North B Street Alley located between Wayne Avenue Alley and Park Avenue situated in the First Ward, North Side, City of Hamilton, Ohio. City of Hamilton applicant, second reading.
Mr. Mayor. Vice Mayor Ryan.
Make a motion that the ordinance be adopted.
Second.
Vice Mayor Ryan, second by Councilmember Pullman. Any discussion on this one? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Pullman,
Yes.
Fear,
Yes.
Ryan,
Yes.
Nab,
Yes.
Lauer,
Yes.
Moeller.
Yes.
Ordinance adopted, 6-0.
Go to agenda item number 7, second reading ordinance involving amending our Hamilton zoning ordinance involving areas including historic districts and ADRB.
An ordinance amending the Hamilton zoning ordinance pertaining to Section 2600 Architectural Conservation Historic Districts and Section 4500 Fee Schedule and approving an updated version of the Architectural Design Review Board Policies and Guidelines, City of Hamilton applicant, second reading.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember
I
Nab.
move the ordinance be adopted.
Second.
Councilmember Nab, second by Councilmember Fear. Any discussion on this one? Okay, hearing none, roll call.
Pullman,
Yes.
Fear,
Yes.
Ryan,
Yes.
Nab,
Yes.
Lauer,
Yes.
Moeller.
Yes.
Ordinance adopted, 6-0.
Go to agenda item number 8, second reading of emergency ordinance on the permanent easement related to our Hamilton Beltline Trail.
An emergency ordinance authorizing the city manager to execute the purchase of a permanent easement located at 208 North B Street for construction of the Hamilton Beltline Trail. DRJ Real Estate Investments LLC, property owner, City of Hamilton purchaser, second reading.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember
I
Fear,
move the ordinance be adopted.
Second.
by Councilmember Fear, second by Vice Mayor Ryan. Discussion, comment on this one? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Pullman,
Yes.
Fear,
Yes.
Ryan,
Yes.
Nab,
Yes.
Lauer,
Yes.
Moeller.
Yes.
Ordinance adopted, 6-0.
Go to new legislation, agenda item number 9, first reading of emergency ordinance involving the ballot initiative, Sunday sales for Mill 1.
An emergency ordinance approving the submission of a ballot initiative to the Butler County, Ohio Board of Elections in accordance with Ohio Revised Code, ORC, Section 4301.356, which, if passed, would permit Sunday sales of beer and intoxicating liquor within the Mill 1 Community Entertainment District. First reading.
Thank you. We go to agenda item number 10, first reading of emergency ordinance involving a ballot initiative, Sunday sales in the Mill 2 Community Entertainment District.
An emergency ordinance approving the submission of a ballot initiative to the Butler County, Ohio Board of Elections in accordance with Ohio Revised Code, Section 4301.356, which, if passed, would permit Sunday sales of beer and intoxicating liquor within the Mill 2 Community Entertainment District. First reading.
Thank you. We go to agenda item number 11, first reading of an ordinance involving amending our zoning ordinance.
An ordinance amending sections of the City of Hamilton zoning ordinance, Section 1250, zoning land use chart, permitted uses, conditional uses, accessory uses, Section 1300, conditional uses and specific uses, Section 1400, accessory uses, Section 1600, off-street parking and loading regulations, Section 1800, residential design standards, Section 3900, glossary, and Section 4500, fee schedule pertaining to the first round of 2023 zoning text amendments, City of Hamilton applicant, first reading.
Thank you. We go to agenda item number 12, resolution involving an OKI funding possibility.
A resolution
projects.
A resolution authorizing, directing, and supporting the filing of a grant application with the Ohio Kentucky Indiana Regional Council of Governments, OKI, relative to funding for the Main Street and Northwest Washington Boulevard sidewalk completion project, and directing the city manager to accept the same and comply with the conditions of the grant.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Pullman.
make a motion that the resolution be adopted.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Pullman, seconded by Councilmember Nab. Comments or questions on this one?
Mr. Mayor,
Please.
when are we gonna find out if we've been awarded for this? We know?
Probably not until October.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? Roll call, please.
Pullman,
Yes.
Fear,
Yes.
Ryan,
Yes.
Nab,
Yes.
Lauer,
Yes.
Moeller.
Yes.
Resolution adopted, 6-0.
Go to agenda item number 13, a resolution involving an OKI grant for some intersection improvements for Northwest Washington Boulevard and West Elkton Road.
A resolution declaring the city's support of the Butler County Transportation Improvement District, submitting a grant application with the Ohio Kentucky Indiana Regional Council of Governments relative to funding for intersection improvements at the Northwest Washington Boulevard and West Elkton Road, and directing the city manager to accept the same and comply with the conditions of the grant.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Lauer,
I'd like to make a motion that the resolution be adopted.
Second.
Councilmember Lauer, second by Councilmember Pullman. Can somebody kind of describe for those who are here in the audience and those watching TV Hamilton about what this potentially is going to look like? Yeah, if you would, Alan, that'd be great. I mean, this is, just from what I saw, this is going to affect township, a village, a city, at 2 locations which are, need some improvement.
Yes, so the improvements would be the 2 existing intersections that are there. You received in your package a conceptual image of it. It would be back-to-back roundabouts. This is essentially a part of the North Hamilton Crossing project, but also a standalone project, so we're able to apply for the funding now. And if we receive that funding in 2027, then that would count towards our local match for other future asks for the overall project. There would be 2 roundabouts where the existing intersections are. Various different scenarios have been looked at. You remember some of the earlier versions of North Hamilton Crossing concepts. They showed kind of a sweeping road that went into Northwest Washington down to where the current intersection at B Street and West Elkton is. But that one had some issues with trying to get people off of West Elkton and onto Northwest Washington. So took a fresher look at it based on the current traffic that's there. And the best scenario looks like 2 roundabouts. They're actually, right now what's shown is two-lane roundabouts, but that'll be refined as the design for North Hamilton Crossing proceeds. It's kind of a worst-case scenario.
Would this be done in like phases or something, or how would it be?
These would be done together. They would essentially function as a single intersection. It's referred to as a barbell type design. You have the 2 roundabouts with a small segment of roadway between them. The reason a single roundabout wasn't a viable option is if you think of the area and how steep the hillsides are. To get a roundabout big enough to capture all 3 roads really gets into cost, gets problematic, starts eating up property and just the slope on the sides. You're talking walls and that sort of thing. This is the cleanest solution and we believe the most effective.
Mr. Mayor?
Please.
Alan, you had shared in your conversation 2027, that would be the funding year, or could that be the actual work year that the roundabouts might be incorporated?
It could be either. That would be the earliest. So assuming that some of this money, so what's in your packet is right-of-way and construction. So assuming the right-of-way is occurring fiscal year 27, that'd be the latter half of calendar year 26, and then construction would actually be in 27.
I see. Thank you.
Now, how contingent is this upon North Hamilton Crossing project?
It's really not. In our public input, we received a lot of comments about the need for improvements to those intersections. City and the county have both been contemplating it for a while. So even if North Hamilton Crossing were to never move forward, this would be a valid standalone project. It's also one that's needed whether the river crossing goes at that location or further south. Just the future, even the current demand, future demand, it's warranted.
We all in this room view it that way probably, and I'm glad it's up on the screen. Will OKI view that the same way, you think?
Yeah, we had that discussion with OKI beforehand. This would essentially look like this, like I said, whether the river crossing occurs at that southern roundabout or further down river. This is the best scenario for here. And then if the river crossing does occur at this location, it would be a 4th leg of that southern roundabout. that would extend then across the river.
Alan, I know we've spoken about this, and it's gray, vague areas. Do you recall what the traffic count is at each of those intersections?
So the count for the intersection is about 11,000 vehicles, and that's like total, coming into the intersection. So they're each, the southern one's maybe closer to 15.
And I realize that because of traffic coming in B Street and using the Black Street Bridge and into Hamilton and things, that might be a little bit more of a thoroughfare, if you will, than the intersection at North Washington and West Elkton. So thanks for
Yes.
clarifying that.
Yes. Yeah, and those numbers are only going to increase.
And I understand, exactly.
With or without North Hamilton Crossing.
Great. Any other questions, comments?
Exciting stuff, thank you.
Thank you for your work on this.
Thank you.
Okay, if there's no other discussion or questions, just ready for a roll call vote.
Pullman,
Yes.
Fear,
Yes.
Ryan,
Yes.
Nab,
Yes.
Lauer,
Yes.
Moeller.
Yes.
Resolution adopted, 6-0.
Thank you. We now go to agenda item number 14, resolution involving an ODNR grant for construction of a kayak launch.
A resolution authorizing, directing, and supporting the filing of a grant application with the Ohio Department of Natural Resources, ODNR NatureWorks program relative to the construction of a kayak launch along the Great Miami River near Markham Park, and directing the city manager to comply with and execute any and all documents necessary to accept and receive said grant funds if awarded.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember
I
Nab.
move the resolution be adopted.
Second.
By Councilmember Nab, second by Councilmember Pullman. This has been your project, Mr. Tymon?
I'd say it's a collaboration with the planning and engineering, so there's some kudos that should go to Liz Hayden, Chad Harville, and Pat Yingling for this project.
Kudos to all of them, but can you say a few words about it based upon your knowledge?
Sure. So back in 2017, 2018, the City of Hamilton was working on the comprehensive plan in tandem with the River Master Plan. Around 2019 was when we adopted these plans, and with the intent of increasing activity along the Great Miami River and also increasing access to the river as well. So late last year, the planning department and engineer's office and my office, we wanted to apply for the paddling enhancement grant with ODNR. Unfortunately, they weren't, they didn't give us that option to apply. They weren't giving that grant out that year. So we decided to pivot for this grant, which is the ODNR NatureWorks program. This is actually an interesting grant application because there's a lot of different factors that are involved with this as far as accessibility for ADA and public participation, and these are some interesting boxes to check along the way. While we were reviewing this grant application, we kind of determined with the goal of increasing activity along the Great Miami River as well as increasing accessibility to the river, we felt that a kayak launch next to Markham Park and River's Edge was the best option. This is because with the history of creating the ramp that leads down to the Great Miami River recreational trail that already exists, as well as it being in a centralized location, we felt this was a good option. As well as the other portals, as we call them, to the river, don't have the accessibility that would qualify for this grant. For example, Combs Park does have plenty of parking, but that is located just north of our 2-mile dam, which is a hazard for paddlers to try to be active on our river. Another example would have been next to the Fitton Center, which does have ample parking, but the steps going down to the river are there's no way that we would be able to meet the accessibility requirement for this grant. So in summary, we felt that this was the best option to try to apply for this grant, and also we felt that if there are funds out there, we should try to apply for them. And if anything, this is the start, or this could be the start to increase more development along the river. So that's a short summation of this application.
Questions or comments?
Mr. Mayor,
Please.
Daniel, we knew this was a passion of yours, and when the mayor asked you to share and vocalize what exactly is going on, but thanks for sharing too, Liz, in your work. The work, and here we were listening at the onset of our meeting to Mary Lynn's presentation about the Conservancy and how important that is, and the stair steps that take place to be able to have activity within the Conservancy District and things. So thanks for navigating all of those matters, and not issues, but matters, and then making this a most probable opportunity for our city. It's good stuff. Thank you.
Thank you. It's my pleasure.
Any other comments? Okay, thank you. Are you ready for the roll call vote?
Pullman,
Yes.
Fear,
Yes.
Ryan,
Yes.
Nab,
Yes.
Lauer,
Yes.
Moeller.
Yes.
Resolution adopted, 6-0.
Thank you. We now go to agenda item number 15, involves a resolution.
A resolution declaring LGBTQ+ Pride Month in June 2023 for the City of Hamilton, Ohio. Hamilton Pride Commission applicant.
Mayor,
Councilmember Fear.
I move the resolution be adopted.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Fear, second by Vice Mayor Ryan. Any discussion or comments about this? I want to say just a few words. This was in front of us last year, and this is the second year, and I'll probably vote for it every year if it's in front of us for June. If the resolution is written a certain way. At some point in time, it's my opinion that I believe the City of Hamilton should be an applicant for a resolution which supports and encourages diversity and inclusion for basically, could say all cultures, races, religions, ages, gender, sexual orientation, disability. I think the resolution could promote more respect amongst people, so that there's no group that's afraid of being attacked or being hated and anything directed towards any group in this city. I know we've got an ordinance that created the ordinance in the Diversity and Inclusion Commission. I'm not sure if it goes so far as to talk about acceptance, to talk about respect, to talk about freedom from activity, which should make all of us feel bad. So I do think global sometimes, at some point in time, I think there should or could be a resolution that does go into those other areas. So that's just my comments, not just about on this resolution, but on what could be a future resolution.
Mr. Mayor,
Please.
I would agree with you that an all-encompassing opportunity for our city, and not citing any one in particular, but an all-inclusive, that also determines the opportunity for people to gather, to people to be able to have a certain day, a certain month that is so noted, but to be able to do that without having a pinpoint as we're discussing tonight. So I've looked at this resolution, I've looked at the different opportunities to be able to address this tonight. It certainly is appropriate. We hope that the gathering is appropriate. I recognize that last year there was a sense of not being appropriate in some areas. There was some contesting going on, and a little bit of discussion between neighbors of what was taking place that we heard about during that time, and then again after that time. So I hope that a week from Saturday is very, very entertaining to the entire community. It's very inclusive to the entire community, and we can all move along in that inclusivity that you had mentioned in your comments, Pat. Thanks.
Any other comments? I think the key thing is respect. If we all respect each other, things will go smooth at every event that we have going on in this city. But I've been concerned about any could be hate or attacks. Okay. And if there's no other comments, roll call vote, please.
Pullman,
Yes.
Fear,
Yes.
Ryan,
Yes.
Nab,
Yes.
Lauer,
Yes.
Moeller.
Yes.
Resolution adopted, 6-0.
We will now go to audience of the city manager.
Excuse me, I have nothing this evening.
Audience and City Council and Board and Commission reports.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Lauer.
we have two educators that are retiring this year that I would like to recognize. They have been a big part of my career. One is Joey Lewis. He's retiring from the baseball job. I just want to wish him congratulations. He's a great example for what our kids need. He upholds a standard for our kids, and it is a great example for our student athletes. The other one is very special to me, and that is Kathy Christian. Dr. Christian and I have taught together for quite a few years. She is an amazing woman. She is a fireball. She has done so much for the young people who, whether they're honors or whether they're in some of the classes that require more help. She has been an awesome person to Hamilton City Schools. She's been a lifetime resident, and I wish her the best of luck in the future.
Thank Councilmember Lauer, because those are two people who made a real impact, whether it be athletics, education, combination of both. Great people in our system. Any other comments from council? Or
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to put a cap on what we accomplished on Saturday for our veterans. The Veterans Banners dedication that was held this past Saturday at noon at Armstead Park was attended by probably a couple hundred people who had applied for and had banners created for their loved ones. Some of the soldiers were there with us as we head into Memorial Day. The 11 soldiers who were killed in action were part of a special part of the ceremony, that their families and loved ones were with us to be able to honor those soldiers who paid the ultimate sacrifice in service to our country. Those banners, if you'll recall, are placed on the main High Street Bridge appropriately. All 11 signify those soldiers who passed away. The banners on Main Street, Eaton Avenue, B Street are the soldiers who served valiantly in their roles in the service. Some of those are still in service today. I talked to a lady who had 14 family members with us on Saturday for the celebration of our veterans. There were people there from out of state that came in to celebrate their loved ones who are remembered in veterans banners. The banners will stay up through the middle of November, Veterans Day of 2023, and the banners will be taken down and cleaned by the Naval Cadets at Hamilton High School, the ROTC cadets. They will be stored in a bin like umbrellas would be stored. They'll be rolled up, and after they're dried, cleaned and dried, they will be tagged with the soldier that was on that banner, and also the military branch that they served in, so they can be reinstalled next year. We will also start taking applications again in the middle of November at Veterans Day 2023 for the banner class of 2024. We've already received over 40 inquiries from people who are just taken with the banners that we have had up now, and they'd like banners to represent their loved ones, their soldiers. So we know that the banners that'll be with us through the summer and fall of 23 are important to the families. We want to thank all of the support community businesses that were named. The mayor read those in his statement, but the city of Hamilton and all of the work that went on. So please know that the banners are staying up. One of the people said, are they taking the banners down this week? And I said, no, they'll be up for the next 6 months. So we're very proud to be able to honor the service members. Know that the applications, as I said, will be available this coming November and out through March of 2024 for the new banner class of 2024. Thanks very much.
I'm going to say a few comments because that was really a special event in our city. It was a veteran-led project. Got to give a salute to like Chris Haynes and Jack Whalen and Ken Callahan and the like. I think Dan was involved on the group, and Jessica Harp was, but Folks came as far as California for that dedication. And the widow who came from California, her husband was a Hamilton High School, Hamilton Taft graduate, and he was a Navy SEAL his entire career in Southeast Asia. And it's just an incredible project. And I just want to say that if you get a chance, drive in the evening hours over that bridge with the banners. I know the monument that we have, the Soldiers and Sailors Monument, is a monument worthy of Washington, D.C. But I'll tell you what, that bridge is now a monument with those banners up. Different color for different branches, and for those who truly gave all. And I have heard a lot of thanks as well for the project that was accomplished. Number 2, Memorial Day. Buckeye Memorial Day Parade starts at 10 o'clock. Prior to that is a laying of the wreath ceremony that we started back during the COVID year. And Chief Shaw from the fire department, I think he's retiring, but he actually will be laying the wreath again. It's just going to be a very solemn, symbolic ceremony at the monument, this laying of the wreath. That's at 9:30. 10 o'clock is the parade, and at 11:15 is the ceremony at Greenwood Cemetery. And lastly, June 7th is National Run Day. I heard that from one of the neatest groups I've had the occasion to come into contact with. That's the Hamilton Run Club. They're the folks who volunteer to clean up various paths around here that they run on. But they're going to be running, and I like what they said, they're going to start their run at Fit and Family YMCA. They're going to finish it with either food or ice cream in Hamilton. I mean, these folks are Hamilton through and through. I want to thank Doreen Barrow. She's the leader of the Hamilton Run Club. Anything else from council?
Was it an affirmative that you will be running with the Run Club, Mayor, or was it not?
I don't know. They've invited me. I have struggled with my running, but thank you for bringing that up. Councilmember Nab?
We can meet them at the finish line.
Food and ice cream?
Ice cream.
You can walk. Yeah. Okay, anything else? All right. Request for executive session.
Yes, sir, for one item, to consider the appointments of a public employee or official.
Okay, is there a motion that council go in executive session for that stated purpose?
So moved.
Second. Motion by Councilmember Pullman, second by Vice Mayor Ryan. Roll call vote to go in executive session for that stated purpose.
Pullman,
Yes.
Fear,
Yes.
Ryan,
Yes.
Nab,
Yes.
Lauer,
Yes.
Moeller.
Yes.
Motion adopted, 6-0.
Thank you. We're going to go into executive session and come out of this meeting to open it up and then to basically adjourn the meeting so we're done with our public business.